Hello, everyone. My name is Adeola Adeniyi, and I'm a rising senior marketing major, film minor at Howard University. And today we are graced with the presence of Miss KJ Rose, also known as the Talent Whisperer, and for good reason. If you have a talent or an artist that needs some performance development, she is the woman to call. And you better believe companies like RCA, BET, Universal, Nickelodeon, Pandora, the list can go on, have already dialed them digits. She is the catalyst behind some of your favorite artists, such as Lil Nas X, 24K Golden, and has also been on stage performing with artists like Diddy, Common, and Janet Jackson. She honestly does it all. So please put your hands together, your virtual hands, drop some comments in the chat, and welcome Miss KJ Rose. How are you today?
Hey, what a welcome. You want to go on the road? Come on the road.
I mean, if the opportunity calls, I'll pick it up.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I am doing amazing. I am grateful on this Sunday, and just it's, what time is it here? It's about 11 o'clock. So yes, I am recovering from a great day yesterday, and I'm grateful to be here with you guys today.
Well, it's honestly such a pleasure to have you here with us today. You are such an industry powerhouse and truly the catalyst behind some of our favorite acts and performances. There is no denying that you have such a huge impact on the industry already. So I wanted to start off by asking, what even inspired your decision to kind of come into the music industry? And looking back at the moment that you decided that this is where you want to be, is it what you imagined your career to turn out?
Absolutely not. On every front. I'll just say, being from Chicago, at the time when I was growing up, which I was probably, I'm a young gal, that we didn't have as many examples of someone that went an unconventional route, right? So I think around the time that Kanye and Common, were coming out is probably when I started brewing. But at the same time, there was such a distance between, myself and Ashaka, who's also from Chicago. And so it was kind of like I had this passion for music. I knew that I enjoyed singing, but I didn't think I was good enough to pursue a career at it, right? Because I had this undeniable and kind of debilitating stage fright. So I was great with team sports. I was great with team activities, the choir, pom-pom, cheerleading, but asked me to recite a poem or to like sing on the stage by myself, like it never really worked. And so I just thought that maybe I would find myself as a music industry executive. And so I interned for Sony. I went to Florida A&M University. And while I was there, I got a degree in business. And it was my sorority sisters of Delta Sigma Theta that were like, well, we need somebody to sing for this thing. And I was like, well, let me get you somebody. And they were like, you are the somebody. And so it was the constant messaging of those around me that say, hey, I see something. And me being open to that conversation, despite how I felt, about the nerves. And from there, I graduated. I met just a key person in my life. While I was still at FAM, his name is Big John Platt. So anybody that desires music, the business of music and really understanding it, you should research him, John Platt. He was there for a friend's graduation, and all of my friends were like, oh, my girl sings now. Here's the thing about being the only one of your group that can sing. Sometimes it gets a little bit skewed because you think you're really dope, but you just dope out of that group. So then you got to figure out what real dopeness is, right? And so I was like, well, I'm not a clown, okay? I don't just be singing on the spot. That's not my thing. And so he was like, all right, then, well, I'm out tomorrow. And that was kind of like the first lesson of like always staying ready, right? It's like we get sometimes very caught up in the announcement of who we are and what we do, but are you ready when the opportunity presents itself? And so I think I belted out of tune in that moment. And I was headed to New York to work for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. And he had a team of managers that were there as well, Dave Nelson, Erskine Isaac, and they took me under their wings and helped me to cultivate this talent. And it became this thing that I shot for every day. So 9 to 5 at Pfizer, sometimes having to sleep in the bathrooms because at night from 5 to 5 a.m., I was either in the studio, I was on stage, just working out this thing because it was like, again, how do I make sure that I shoot past what my body is saying, which is you're not a performer. You're not supposed to be on stage. But this passion of mine said, but I love this. So let me figure out how to make these things coexist. And so at that point, I remember Carl Thomas, being very instrumental in my life. And I would be singing background, during a lunch break for Big on his album Life After Death. And then, or after work with the great D-Dot. And then, find myself in a meeting or just visiting a studio. And I met Kelly Price, who then was like, do you want to go on tour the next week? So it was like moments like that helped me to kind of, shape this idea that that maybe I'm supposed to be on this stage, right? So I sang background for Puff as maybe for about 3 months as a background singer. And from Puff, I went to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. And these were all the moments. It's the moments that people don't see that you really need to spend time crafting, working on your craft, shaping your craft. And so then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I can do this. I have now conquered the art of background singing. So now maybe that means you're prepared to put your own thing out, right? But nobody pays you to put your own thing out. So it is your internal kind of like metric that says, this is where you should also be. And how do you make sure that if nobody else is validating this thing that you should be doing, how do you make sure that you validate it, you self-approve, you pre-approve before you allow everybody else to have a say in it? And it probably took me 10 years to believe that I was good enough to be a solo artist. And so by the time I decided to check myself and to say, if you're a singer, then sing. If you're a writer, then write. Stop waiting for everybody else to decide that this is your fate. Then I felt like God started opening doors for me. And I put my own album out called All Heart, No Regrets. And after that, I was like, okay, I think I did that. I have completed the task. At the same time, I was working for Clive Davis at J Records. And I learned to honor my space, right? So there's a process long before we get to that thing, that goal, that dream that we have. And sometimes it's doing the things you don't want to do. So I was hired as a nighttime receptionist at J Records so that I could actually go to the studio during the day. This is upon leaving Pfizer and going on tour and just taking that leap of faith. And I remember just kind of like every day wanting to belt out a song to him, but I wanted to be respected for the role he had actually hired me for. And so I said, well, how can I still collect information in a space that I had no idea I would land, but could actually add value to my journey?
Just that story alone was so beautiful. Just to hear so many places that you were in and the opportunities that it opened up for you. It's so encouraging because sometimes, we don't understand that those small moments are leading up to something so much more bigger.
I would say it's the small moments. It's making sure that you don't dismiss anybody or any information they may have for you based on their title or based on their current position. Because the same people that offer you that advice that, are there to just, begin to network with will be the same people, that you will see as you begin to ascend, right? Mm-hmm. I always tell the story about how I had a friend who was an executive at Jive Records at the time. And I really had set my sights on Britney Spears. I was like, oh, we going on this road with Britney. And I remember his assistant was the gatekeeper, right? So I was always calling, be like, what's up, Aaron? How you doing? Blah, blah. Okay, good. Where is Jeff? Where's your boss? I need Jeff. And he's like, oh, he's not in. I'd be like, okay, Aaron, well, you have a great day. Always very cordial. Always spoke to Aaron. But imagine weeks of this before I finally said, well, Aaron, how's your day going? What you been up to? And again, Aaron is the assistant to Jeff. Jeff, to me, was the one that was going to make all my dreams come true with Britney Spears. And then Aaron said, well, what have you been trying to do? And I said, Aaron, I just need to go on the road with Britney Spears. He was like, oh, well, my friend is the tour manager, right? So I was trying to get over here. But Aaron was like, my friend is the tour manager. Send me your stuff. Mm-hmm. I'll send it to him. The tour manager sent it to the music director. And at that point, I had the connection to being able to perform with her, right? But I still wasn't in. It still required more from me. So at that point, I missed the auditions that they had in New York. And I made it my business to make sure that I reached out to the music director every other day, respectfully. But it was a soft stalking that was happening, because I knew that at the end of the day, there would be someone that would sing me under the table, that would dance me under the table, but they would not outwork me, right? So I called him like, hey, did you find what you were looking for? And he'd be like, no, not yet, but we're still looking. I was like, okay, cool. Let me go on with my life. A couple of days later, hey, I was about to get on the train, on the subway, but I wanted to make sure that you didn't find anything yet. He was like, I know. I said, I wanted to make sure you were not going to call me. He said, I was not. I was like, fair. All right. Because at the end of the day, my force is persistence. So you got to figure out what that thing is in addition to the talent, right? Because sometimes people can't get to the talent yet until you get in the door. So the talent will sustain you once you're in the door, but it ain't that thing that will always open the door. So in that moment, it was tenacity that opened the door, that finally, after working on him for months, he said, look, I have never given anybody a job like that over the phone, like this, over the phone, but it is yours if you want it, right? So not only was it about not dismissing anyone, making sure that you networked and build relationships, not just collected numbers and names, built relationships, then be you in the process. And people will hire based on who they believe you are, what your core is. They'll hire work ethic, tenacity, and persistence sometimes before they will hire the talent that doesn't work that hard. Mm-hmm. So I learned valuable lessons in that space. So again, another long-winded thing, but you got it.
But you were dropping them gems. Like, I hope everyone has them notepads out and them pens ready, because those gems are definitely things that we need to take with us as we, maneuver ourselves through this industry. And so when you were talking about your journey a little bit, you talked about college, you're HBCU grad, you attended family. Yes. And so what steps during your college days did you take to get you to the music industry? And then for those people who might not be in college, what steps can you recommend for them to, try to get their foot into the industry right after whatever it is that they're doing at the moment?
Right. Again, being in school that had, being at a school that had a school of business that really trained you for corporate America more than anything. I was kind of very single focused of, okay, you've got to work for Eli Lilly, you've got to work for Pfizer. And my sister, Cynthia Johnson, at the time was working for Sony. And I was like, hey, Sony is corporate. Like, I need to have an internship with Sony Music. And I took the steps. Sometimes it's not that it's not available to you. It's that you may be the vessel to making that opportunity come to fruition. It was that they hadn't thought about it, right? So I created the moment in my life where I was able to get a credit for an internship through music. So it was something always pulling me. And even though it wasn't offered, it didn't mean it was impossible, so that's first and foremost. So even though I was, again, at a school, it still required, it required my persistence and my kind of relentlessness in order to create the moment that I wanted for my life. And so for those that are not in school at this stage in the game, you are surrounded with so many, mediums and accessibility. I mean, you can live in Idaho and get the job that you want. No longer do you have to live in LA or New York or Chicago to create the moments that you want. So I would say, take full opportunity to really get on and research the people via LinkedIn. Look at the players that are really willing to share their lives. Like, it's not this secret society anymore, right? Now you have access more than you have ever had in your life. You need to create, if there's someone that you believe is in marketing that you love to work with, or you want someone to see your work, it's not enough just to DM them and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I want to get a job. And you can't do that, right? Now it's about create a marketing plan as if you already work for them. Do a concert. If you're a singer, do a concert, that will just blow someone's mind. on, Twitch, on, like, I don't know, do something on SoundCloud. There's so many programs now. Do freaking TikTok. Some girl, I think, wanted a job and created her resume via TikTok, because now there's so many different avenues in which you can be creative to make yourself stand out, that if you're not at least scratching the surface of that, then people don't see you. So it is the being who you are that should lead you to the creativity that you can do, that will lead you to someone being able to see you. And so I just truly believe in that. If I could be on TikTok, and I know I'm older than y'all, trying to find moments, and it's still, I feel like Lil Nas be like, KJ, you've got to do more. You've got to because he is the masterful, like TikToker and troller and, just of himself, right? He has figured out that thing that makes it work for him. And that's really what it's about. Figure out your thing. You ain't got to do it like nobody else. Figure out your force. My force is energy. And so what you have is a consistency and a display of all of my energetic, honest, true, authentic moments of me displaying, illustrating energy. What is your force? What is that thing about you that if someone challenged, you would go head to head, toe to toe, because unequivocally that is who you are, right? There's nothing that you are emulating off of anybody else. Stand in that firmly, and that's what you project, because that's the thing that's long standing. The minute you try to hop on a trend that is not you, or try to do something or be someone else, you can't sustain that forever. So I say, figure out that thing that's you, that's naturally you, that personality trait, I don't know if it's as small as smacking your gum. Maybe every post you do, you like, I have mastered smacking my gum. And that is my thing. Whatever that thing is for you, you gotta like embrace it and show up for it and step into it.
Embrace your force. I truly, truly love that. And so I kind of want to shift more into your role as an artist in performance development. Like, people really don't really know what that is. So can you kind of talk about what an average work day looks for you? Like, what is the list of responsibilities that kind of come with your current role?
So artist development and performance coaching simply means that we all have a story to tell. And my job is to make sure that you explicitly maximize your story beyond the passion of your story, right? Because you can have a whole lot of passion and it not land anywhere. So it is to help you occupy your space, tell your story in a way that you project, in a way that it's received from your audience. So that story can be told in a corporate setting, right? In the boardroom. If you're on a sales team, how well are you selling that product? How well are you selling yourselves? How well do you stand and project and have a level of eye contact? And how well do you share your vulnerability? Like, that counts. So at the end of the day, my job is to help you reconcile your internal narrative. So whatever that external expression is, whether that is you, as a nurse, you as a basketball player, you as a bodybuilder, you as an artist, you as a painter, you as a speaker, whatever that is, it's to help that external expression feel honest. And because people can tell when things are contrived, right? So it is, if Lil Nas is doing SNL and, there's no choreography, there's more about you planting your feet, you telling that story, not from an evolved place, but going back to the origin of your why. I help you figure out what your point of view is. What is your why? Why do you care before you ask us to care, right? Mm-hmm. And so that could look like, a day could look like me doing a workshop for 150 executives at Sony Music, really helping people to identify what their personal assets are. So you never really feel like you're working again. I help you identify your star power, right? Because within, corporations, there's so much star power in the individual executives and staff that work there, but there is untapped, right? So before you can add to the collective and have a collective force, you got to figure out your individual force. So I could go from working at Sony to then taking that same energy and applying it to a video with Lil TJ and Fabio and Polo G, right? It's now individually, you guys are artists, right? You have your own thing. How can I make sure that not only are you projecting your own magic, but now let's figure out that collective magic, right? And my job is physical a lot of times because I can't wait to access your energy. I've got to bring my own. And so being on the sidelines where you can't necessarily be in front of their faces, hyping them up, I have to make sure that my energy shoots to the middle of the grounds of a mansion, that they hear me, that they understand what I'm requiring them to do are suggestions of movement so that you can now access your own movement, right? Literally and figuratively. And then from there, it could be me having a conversation with an emerging artist that has confidence, I don't want to say issues, but a lack of confidence, so it can span.
You talked about your force being energy, and just like hearing you talk is giving me so much life. Like I'm like ready to get up, get active. And I know there are people who might be like, I kind of want to do what she does. So what are the top 3 skills that you would recommend for someone to have if they're interested in having your role? Because not everybody has that power to like give somebody energy and encourage them to keep going. There are some people who do drain the life out of you, but you give that constant energy. So how do you, what do you suggest for those people to have those skills for them to come in the industry with?
Well, the thing about it is, we'll say the role of a creative director, right? Because I feel like my role is constantly changing. And, I want to say, I don't want you guys to ever get frustrated if you can't immediately communicate your roles, right? Because for me, I only give you a title for your understanding, but the job is so much bigger. You know what I mean? Like the title is for everybody else. But for me, it's really an emotional contract, right? So, what people don't see, what you see is the end result of, a show that, maybe 24K did on Ellen, but you didn't see all the work of, hey, you're capable of this. Hey, let's stretch ourselves because I know that you can do more than what you're doing. I want to push you beyond your perceived capacity. So a lot of that is an emotional contract and less about the movement on stage, right? So there are so many different titles under this, right? So there's an A&R, there is, a speaker, there is what's the word? That's another, title other than music executive. So I don't know if I completely, because my trajectory it's very empirical, right? So I don't know if I would have the same role had it not been for me being on the road with Janet and Brittany and Justin, right? I don't know if it would be the same role had I not had my own career as an artist, as a foreground artist. And so I think this is it's a little different, but I will say no matter what role you desire to go into, it has to come with a relentless energy, right? Because someone is always trying to do the same thing. You're not going to be the only one, right? Because some people call me a vocal coach also. And I cover the 360 view and space of an artist, right? But I always say vocal coaches deal with the instrument, but I deal with the behavior. How do you now take this instrument and make sure when you're on stage, you are properly administering, properly projecting beyond the first 2 rows. So relentlessness is one. Inquisitive, like stay inquisitive, like never get comfortable in what you did yesterday, right? I would love to say, to have so many calling cards of, we were able to get a Grammy for the Old Town Road video. But you know how long ago that is? Don't nobody care. I would love to say, hey, I was featured in Rolling Stone. Okay, a lot of other people were, but I'm gonna take this win for myself. But you can't rest on yesterday's win. You got to keep going. Take the moment to enjoy it. Celebrate yourself. So I probably took myself to have some crab legs, to enjoy and reward myself. Figure out, I think in order for you to have a healthy journey, you have to make sure that you don't wait on anybody else to validate what you believe a win is. You got to define what the victory is for you, right? So as many people would say early on, like, oh, you're really good at what you do. Why didn't you make it as an artist? And before I did my internal work, that would hit me in a way where I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't make it. Okay. And then I would start thinking, like, I would go into an entire spiral of, well, did I give up? Did I not try hard enough? And then I would have to remember what you do now was not in lieu of what you did before. It's because of what you did before. And you didn't even start having a desire to sing until you got in college. You didn't start at the Beyonce age at 5. So you have really actually already surpassed the victory that you were looking for because you did not even believe you would land here. So then my response became, people will respond to you based on your own response, right? So then I left very little space for people to come in and take my power. So then it became, oh, why didn't you make it? And then I said, I did make it, you just missed it. But that's okay too. Okay. All right. So you got to figure out your own narrative before you give people space to walk in and give you a narrative. It's the work you do before you leave the house. It's the work you do before, you get on that phone call, you get with your group of friends. You got to do that internal work. And so did I give 2? That was 3. Okay. And lastly, so that was don't rest on your past laurels, figure out what your narrative is, figure out what your story is. And I would say complete vulnerability. A lot of times, I remember walking into an opportunity with Kelly Rowland because she was doing a show called Chasing Destiny, right? And I think that in that moment, I was still trying to tell myself, you belong here. I was still giving myself permission to say, this is what you're supposed to be doing, right? And sometimes that can show up in a very physical way, right? When you don't think you should be somewhere, you just start talking, right? You start talking about why you should be there. Go, I've done this and I'm here for this. And yeah, and I really am. I've done this. And then I was able to accomplish this. And at the end of the day, if you're already there, you've already been qualified for it, right? You could fool around and mess up the whole dang on thing because now you're just talking so much and you done told things you probably didn't even need to tell. And so it is like, give yourself permission first, be vulnerable enough to know that there is just as much power in the observing and the standing and the stillness of confidence as much as there is in the talking. There will be times when you will have to represent yourself, of course, but know that there is also so much power in learning from others and the listening, and so in that moment, I was able to sit back and observe and collect. So by the time she said, all right, KJ, take it away, I didn't spend all my brain power talking about myself, but not figuring out where each person's gift lied while she was talking, what she was looking for when she said, take it away, so all of those things matter. So by the time she said that, even though we weren't even on camera, I had enough information that I collected in my listening that I could be effective. So by the time I left, she was like, or I was on my way leaving, and she said, KJ, I need this for myself too. Can you come back tomorrow? Right? So it was that work that was done that led me to the next day that when I walked in, they said, is somebody Mike and KJ? Well, I was like, well, who is Mike? because I don't have on any lashes or lipstick for TV. I'm good for person-to-person interaction, but not for TV. And they were like, well, we're micing you because you're about to be on the show, right? So you see how all those tiny moments of just paying attention, led to the moment of me being on camera and on my first ever docuseries, And so it's like, again, I had to make sure that I understood the power. It didn't mean that I didn't have anything to offer because I was quiet and observing, right? It just meant that I had a level of understanding and professionalism that I could sit in this moment and know that I could still be effective by standing here and exuding confidence.
People often speak about the fact that artists sometimes fail because they're surrounded by yes men. And I hear a lot in your interviews that you say that you're not here to fix artists, but to ignite a fire that they might have not known how to light up themselves. That your job is to agitate areas that may have been lying dormant, or, they never existed and they weren't aware of their power. So how do you personally...
Come on, Adeola, with all the homework. Come on, keep going.
Look, okay. But how do you personally toe the line between empowering your artists and then hindering their growth and development?
Well, I think I always stay in the mindset of I'm going to push you beyond what you've ever felt before in your life, right? And it will transcend just you being on this traditional stage, right? These are things I want you to have for the life stage. And so what I also understand is that everyone has their own way of interpreting information. They have their own metric. And so because I pray before I go into every artist so that I can give them what they need, less of me and more of what they need to hear them, and to move according to what works best for them, with the same information, but applied differently. Wherever they land after that, I'm comfortable with, because they have already shot beyond their comfort zone, right? So at that point, it becomes, now let's just chip away because there's more to be done. But it's first, my job is to shock the system. You ever had something or eaten something or done something that, and maybe, I know what it is. Sometimes we jump into the pool, we know it's freezing, but in order for us to get comfortable and get, for it to get warm, we just have to shock our bodies by jumping in to the deep end where it's very cold, right? Then after a while, you're like, okay, I got this. All right. And then you get out. Then you got to get back in. And so for me, I believe that, the empowering piece of it is my assignment. And I also believe that, it's funny because I've had artists where every part of me aligns with a lot of them, many parts of them. And then I've had artists where I'm like, I want to spank them because none of what I stand on is what they are saying. And I'll be like, I've heard more N words, more B words, more, but whatever it is. And I've had to figure out, how do I empower in the midst of all these shenanigans, right? But as a coach, I can't judge the art. That is not my job. I have to make sure that I treat the heart. But first I have to learn. I have to take my cues. I have to collect the information. So when I say I come in not waiting to access their energy, I am still aware of where they are, right? But I want to see, we have a conversation. I want to know, hey, how do we get here? Tell me about your parents. Why do you do? Have you ever hurt anybody? Have you shot a gun? Okay. Well, can we talk more about, how we got here? And I remember being in the midst of working with someone, and I was like, okay, Lord, tell me what to do, because I just don't understand where my power lies in this, right? And then I look at all the other people that are in the room, and it's all of their friends. And then I realize that the artist gives all of their friends purpose, and your reach is longer and deeper than what you think. And if you're able to give him purpose, by default, they gain purpose. And then I understand, I always have to remember what my point is for being in the room. You know, it's not just about work, 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 and then here's the check. It's also like, I want them to leave better than they came. So I find myself not only coaching the artist I was hired for, but coaching the other people in the room so they can all hold themselves accountable, you know, for it. So I never see or I never find, there are moments, if we're talking about, you know, have you ever found yourself hindering? There are moments, I think, because I consider all my artists assignments. Like, I don't feel like I got anybody by default, right? So after I give you all the tools that, and I'm walking with you step by step, then when I find or I see that you are slightly melting, but I know you got all the tools. It's like watching, you want to help your baby walk, but you know they can just go, they'll fall and they'll get back up again, right? And so there have been times I said, if I walk over there, when I know I've already equipped them, if I walk over there while we're on set and, you know, I help them up, then they've got to start this process all over again. But how will I ever know? How will they ever know the metric or if the work is working if I don't allow them to have the moment when they tap into the tools and they bring themselves back to a moment of empowerment? And so that's hard. I've watched that. I've had moments where I went to help and I was like, and then I've had moments where I've sat back and I've watched them help themselves. So I am totally committed with every ounce of my being to making sure that they leave me better than how they came.
So we're wrapping up the interview. You have dropped so many amazing tips and gems. Like I know I'm sad that it's wrapping up, but is there any final piece of advice that you would give students who are watching this interview right now to take with them while they enter the music industry?
So I wrote a book, The Rose Effect, 8 Steps to Delivering the Performance of Your Life. And it really talks about how out of every pivot that I've made has come with challenges, but what my lesson was in each of those challenges, and then it gives an actionable piece for you guys. That was a low plug, but really, not really. But I say that just to kind of give you background on my why for this book. I don't want people to have to reinvent the wheel. Like, I want you to be able to say and to see in your own life, man, this felt like a defeat, but was it really ever a defeat? Like, something that feels like a defeat, if you don't take anything from it, yes, you were defeated. But if you walk away with gems, a new way to now, approach something, then it's never really a defeat. So I want to read as my final offering, little synopsis from the book. It says Seeds of Victory. All right. KJ Seeds of Victory. Number 1, don't outsource your win. Meaning you're waiting for everybody else to say that your name means something, that your gift is necessary, that maybe you do have something in this. Like, take the time to pre-approve yourself. And it's the work that you do again before you make that attempt. It took me 2 years to write this book, not because that was like all the time that was needed for every chapter, but because I didn't put author as part of my title. Like, I was just like, no, let me stay in my little lane. I'm a coach. So I sunned myself. Sometimes it doesn't even take other people to sun you. You will sun yourself, daughter yourself, right? Because you put yourself in this box and then you blame it on everybody else, right? Don't outsource your win. We've talked about this. Don't wait to access the energy in the room. Bring your own energy, whatever that may be. Now, I am the round off, flip flop, cartwheel girl into the building. That might not be your thing. Your thing might just be planting your feet, projecting well, projecting with confidence, giving eye contact, getting your body involved, being honest, being authentic, being real. That may be your thing. So figure out what your level of energy is. Show up and be present, because no one can show up for you and no one can show up like you. When we can really go out in these streets, for real, if you're going to be there, make your presence count. It's not something that you make necessarily for everybody else to see, but you should walk away with at least 2 conversations, getting to know 2 more people, learning new information that you didn't learn before. If you leave any room, if you leave any Zoom with the same information you came in with, shame on you. You didn't serve yourself, right? So show up and be present. Identify and abide in your force. We talked about that. Like understanding what your force is. Your force is that thing that unequivocally is you. If somebody was like, KJ ain't got that much energy, I would not even feel the need to have to defend myself. I would just sit back and say, okay. That's how you know when somebody's unbothered and they ain't got to explain. I ain't got to explain nothing to you. Because I just be like, oh, that's all right. You don't get it. You'll get it one day. I am comfortable in that. Figure out what that thing is for you. That you don't have to defend. You can if you like, go ahead. Let me just show you so you'll get it. But it's not from this emotional place of, yes, I am. I am this. Just be that. Just be it. Whatever that thing is, just be that thing. No matter what, make it count. Your point of view, your delivery, your space, your gift. So as music entrepreneurs, whatever that thing is, if you're going to get on IG, don't do it halfway. If you're going to post something, don't post it halfway. If you're going to put something on SoundCloud, make sure that from top to bottom, you mean everything. You did everything with excellence. If you're going to have some conversations, have the questions before you get on there. Don't just land somewhere by default. At least have a sure shot of where you want to go, and then make tiny adjustments on your way. You know what I mean? Okay. Enter every room knowing that you are the solution. You are the yes. If you walk it in like, I think I'm good. I would love to. I think I could do the job. I mean, I sometimes, do marketing for my boy, and and then, he says I'm good. And, my mama really likes what I did. And sometimes I think it's cool, but I mean, I guess I could do the job. Ain't nobody trying to hire no, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like nowadays, people want people on their team that can be an asset. If I feel like you are heavy lifting, I got to carry me and you. Don't nobody want to do that. That's too much. I can't carry your confidence and mine at the same time. That's exhausting. So don't make people feel like they got to carry you. Walk in the door like you are an able body and you are willing to help and you can add value. And the bonus is that you get to collect some gems along the way from this person. But it should never feel like work for them. Okay, almost there. Don't dismiss anyone. Stay humble and stay open. And my final one, which is 1 Corinthians 1:27-29, since we are on this Sunday morning, is God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. Believe it. And so I'll end there. Amen.
Amen. Okay, I think I need to save my coins to make sure I go get that book. So
it's on Amazon. We just did the audio book. It's so funny I said we. But that's how you got to look at yourself as a team, all right? Until you put all the team members in place. We just did this too, me and one person. And sometimes you are your team, until you can afford like other people. But create a team where you guys can exchange skill sets. That'll be helpful. You don't have to do it all by yourself.